Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Angel Face Magic Hour podcast. Today, we're talking with a really special guest. I'm so excited, Sinead. So, I'll have you just introduce yourself to us, share a little bit about who you are and where you're located.
Hi, Grace. Thank you so much for having me. And hello to all the listeners that are tuning in. My name's Sinead Cracknell. I am located in Ireland and I am originally from just outside of London, the UK. And I've just been guided to actually change my niche a little bit as oh my God, I can't even get the words out, the psychic trauma coach. So, what I basically do is blend spirituality and science and trauma and all of those things. And I help to empower others to overcome and heal from trauma and open their psychic abilities, understand spirituality from a very grounded and anchored space, working with the body, working in a very embodied way. I could go on. There's so many things that I do. So to try and put it in and fit it into a nutshell, that's probably just about as much as I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I met you, I don't know, it's been like almost 2 years. And I
Yeah,
got the pleasure of working with you doing some energy healing stuff.
you
But it was
did.
just such a kismet synchronistic thing because I heard about you from Christina Rice, who
Mm.
has a podcast, blah, blah. I've been listening to her podcast forever. But she mentioned like Rahani and energy healing and you. And then I just started following you. And I was like writing, like, because I kept hearing about Rahani and I was like, oh, I want to know, I want to experience this. And you sent me a message like, oh, I do Rahani. I was like, oh, this person, let me check out their work. And then, of course, I know you have evolved into doing so many other things. So
Mm.
it was like, for me, it was a really impactful experience. We did like a couple different sessions. And then you did a soul plan reading. I don't know if you're still doing those, but it's like you look at the person's birth information, all these different symbols, and get to really see like the inside, like the inner workings of a person. So it was super interesting to me to get like confirmations on things I kind of already knew about myself, but to see it like written in this way and explained in an understandable way was really helpful. So it's just really cool to see like, for me, looking at your work, it's very inspiring because you're always diving into yourself. It's not just like, okay, I do this one thing and I'll do it for the rest of my life. It's like you're always expanding and like excavating and going deeper. And that's what makes a good healer practitioner, is like being able to face some of those inner shit in order to help people, do that work for themselves. So I just want to say thank you for the work that we did. And
Oh,
thank you
you're
for
so
coming on and talking
welcome.
with me.
You're so welcome. And you are absolutely right. 100%. I think that it's so, so important for any healer, anybody that's working in service to support others. They need to be doing their work. They need to be doing that deep inner work. They need to be doing the excavation. They need to be diving deeper. They need to, my opinion, need to know themselves inside and out as much as they can consciously. Obviously, we all have blind spots and we don't know what's in our unconscious. And that's exactly why we need to be working with others as well to help us do that, so they can reveal the blind spots, because they're just like, everybody around us is a mirror. So if you have somebody who's kind of 10 steps ahead of you, who can reflect back to you parts of you that you may not be aware of, that's really going to be illuminating for you to be able to then expand even more into who you are and who you came here to be. And the soul plan readings, I do them occasionally. They are so powerful. You're absolutely right. And I think that for many people, many clients that I've facilitated the readings for, is that it did give them a lot of clarity, but it was also, it opened them up so much to other aspects of themselves, like that mirror piece, that reflection, and kind of unveiling parts of themselves that were hidden. So, and obviously with the symbols and everything else that are kind of combined with that, they do get that energetic activation on a DNA and a cellular level. So it's like this truly amazing gift to be able to see what your soul came into this world, came into your human, like what you came here for, what challenges you were supposed to go through or are still supposed to be going through, and who you came here to be. such a beautiful modality to be able to help others, seriously. And I do love this offering, but it's something, again, it's something that I do occasionally. It's not something that I kind of tend to do all the time now. I'm kind of guided by spirit as to when to offer these. It's almost like I'm getting the download, like the collective or whoever it is that's, you know, in my audience, in my community, they're looking for answers, because this is really almost like, when people find me, not just for soul plan readings, they find me for a reason. You know, I'm quite a triggering person. I'm a manifester in human design. So I'm a little bit like Marmite. People either love me or hate me. There's this thing about the manifestors having this really repelling aura, but I like to see this as their genius, where they're actually filtering out the energies of others that are supposed to be kind of around them or not around them. So this is how we find our people.
Yeah, and I think that can be like a catalyst for certain people. Like it can move them into their next phase, or it can show them where they're, you know, maybe not wanting to change.
Yeah, massively. I'm very much that initiator of change. My gene key is actually very similar to my human design. Goes into the fact that I am an initiator, but I'm also like an agent of positive shock, which really describes me very well, because the people that do tend to work with me, it's almost like, oh, okay. And then it's almost like my energy kind of provokes them into taking action, but in a really positive way.
I feel that definitely. I know too, like when we did our sessions, dragons came up a lot in my healing session, and I just wanted to tell you that I have been connecting with them. I had like a regression kind of journey that I did, where I connected with this one dragon guide. They displayed themselves to me as like a purple green color, and then I was like thinking back to how you mentioned there's all these dragons around me. I was like, oh, okay, like that's them. So I have been exploring that a little bit. So it's been pretty interesting.
Dragon energy is so powerful. This is the one thing that I have been learning to master as well, is the connection with my dragons, because they can become quite, if you don't know how to master them and master their energy, they're quite unruly. They were like, kind of, you ask them to do something for you and it will be done to the extreme. So it's almost like kind of just toning it down a little bit, knowing how to speak to them, and just really creating that connection. And I'm actually sensing mine around me right now as well as I'm speaking about this. I don't often, I think sometimes they get quite upset because I don't speak to them as much as I could do.
Maybe that's why they're being brought up right now.
Yeah, but the thing is it's the same with my guides also, is that I know that I could sit down and spend time connecting with them, like intentionally connecting with them, and I don't do that. I just, you know, as and when I'll ask them to come through, I'll ask for signs, or I have very clear audience, clairsentient, like all the clairs. But there's something within me, and I don't know whether you can relate to this, but there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to become codependent with my guides to give me the answers for fucking everything in my life. I know how I have free will, and maybe that's quite I don't know, an interesting trait, or an interesting concept to actually think about, is that, you know, when we're asking our guides for all the guidance, are we being codependent in a codependent relationship with them, and we don't actually trust ourselves? Because I think that so much of, like, I feel like we're always being divinely guided, regardless of whether we sit there, take time out and have a conversation with our guides and ask them questions. I think it just happens naturally and organically, and it's not necessarily something that you have to do every single fucking day. And I think that in the spiritual community, it's like, no, you have to sit down, you have to have connection time, you have to spend time with them, you have to create this relationship. And yes, you do, you can if you want to, but it's not something that you necessarily have to do that. If you fully trust that you're being divinely guided at all times, then any of those kind of downloads, any of those intuitive nudges, any of those kind of words or thoughts or whatever, visions or whatever that's coming through for you, so much of the time it's them.
I agree. I think for me, what I'm trying to get better at is just asking like my body, so that I know, okay, I'll use my body as a pendulum, or just try to connect with my gut intuition, because I do feel like it's easy to get to that place of like, hey, what's up? Like, give me the thing. And then you get the information. And yeah, that it's still a part of you in some ways, but it's an external part of you. So I think some personalities can get really dependent. Like, I could definitely see myself getting dependent on that type of external input. So I have been trying to work on that, like, to know they're always there. You don't need like it's really cool to get those signs and confirmation, like you see something in your real reality with your regular eyes. That's exciting, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening all the time anyway.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on that head there, Grace. And this is the way that I've worked. It's been a journey to get this to this point, because when you and I first met, it was very much all about the healing, and it was all very cognitive, very psychological, very kind of mental body processing, but for me, and emotional body processing. But for me now, the way that I work is very much to do with the body and connecting with the intuition and the body, because our intuition is in our body. That's where the wisdom is. And I think that when people are, come into this realm of spirituality and learn about all of these healers and psychics and mediums and everything else, they want in, and they think that, oh my God, they're connecting with stuff that's outside of them, that's up there in the multiverse and all these different realms, and I want to get up there. And actually, a lot of us in our lives are already living up there and dissociating through trauma and conditioning and fucking God knows what else.
Yeah.
But to actually really, to expand your gifts, to open up your intuitive abilities, to fully trust that you're being divinely guided. This is where I'm tapping on my chest right now. I'm tapping to my body. This is what we need to get to know. This is the part that we need to master, because we're in Earth School. We came here to master the human.
Do you hear that car honking? That's our confirmation.
That spirit going on, hey, Sinead.
Yes. Well, I agree. And I think it's so easy to get into, like, I think it's cool. Like, I'm always trying to develop further, like, my mediumship and things like that. But it can become like an addiction, almost another way to just disassociate, like you said, like to further like live outside of your current reality. And for some people that can be unhealthy.
Yeah, to completely tap out of what of all of who you are. And I think this is I don't want to start using the terminology around star seeds and everything else. I'm just going to keep it real. And I think that when you experience trauma, which fucking practically, by the way, I swear a lot, and I hope that's okay with your
With you what we're used to over here.
Oh, that's cool. When the human experience, okay, all of us have been exposed to some form of traumatic event, and in that traumatic event, or during that traumatic event, it's likely that we may have dissociated. Not everybody, and that dissociation is literally almost like escaping the body, because actually what's going on, it's a way of the body protecting you and your brain protecting you, but escaping the body because it's safer to do so. And so we create this attachment with being outside of our bodies. So to actually come back down, and this is how I speak on this, because this is exactly how I was. Like, it was so much easier for me to fucking live outside of my body, to be dissociated, to escape, because every single memory of everything that I'd ever been through is in my body, as it is in yours, as it is in, you know, everybody that's listening to this right now. That's where the trauma is. And that can be really fucking hard and painful and, you know, vulnerable and difficult, challenging to navigate. So when it comes to opening our spiritual gifts, like, who doesn't want to fucking get outside of their bodies and go and explore in the stars and travel dimensions and meet all these different light beings and everything else? It feels like home because it's safe, because being in the body doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I think for me, like, for so much of my life, I was outside of my body, and it really took like learning about energy healing and things like that was almost a catalyst for me to understand how the body works and actually be grounded. Like, I didn't realize, like, even just standing, I'm like floating around. And it took a really long time for me to understand what that means, like to be in the body. And that's still something I'm like working on, is releasing. And I had a lot of physical pain in my body, so it was a not a fun place to be. And you know, other traumatic experiences make it easy for, it's like we just hop outside the body and we're floating around. And it takes a long time to understand how we can bring those things back inside of us without it causing more pain.
And I think that the body tends to communicate through physical pain. It tends to communicate memories. It tends to communicate, I need some attention. I need you to kind of notice me. I'm here. And this can, you know, not all physical symptoms are rooted in accidents or anything like that. A lot of physical symptoms are rooted in emotional wounds and trauma. And if, you know, if we're constantly outside of the body, traveling to the astral realms, doing whatever we want, the body's going to get louder and louder and louder until it goes, actually, you came here to be human. I am your body. I am the vessel that your soul is, you know, holding, nurturing. And if you don't pay attention to me, the longer you're up there, the less, you know, it's almost as if, like, I need love. I need you to see me. I need you to notice me. I need you to pay attention. And I can't have you going up there and not coming fully back down into me, because I'm your home. And that's what it is. That's, you know, the body is home. Regardless of where you're fucking living, what location you're living in, the body is home. And this actually kind of leads on to, you know, we were talking earlier, today is the 1st year anniversary of me moving to Ireland. And ever since I was a child, I always wanted to move here. And it always felt like home, always felt like home. And I had this burning desire to move here, like years and years, for years and years and years. And that in that time between childhood and now, I'm in my 40s. And there has been so many occasions and traumatic events where I've literally escaped my body and wanted to stay there. And coming back to Ireland and actually living here, it's almost as if I've learned to embrace my home in a completely new and different way. So it still feels like home. Ireland still feels like home, but so now does my body too.
That's beautiful. Where in Ireland are you?
I'm on the west coast in County Galway, so on the Wild Atlantic Way, just on the Atlantic Ocean.
And you spend a lot, I've been seeing your stories on Instagram. You've been going out and swimming in the freezing cold water.
Yes. When
That's
I
beautiful.
arrived, I was like, Irish people are fucking crazy. Look at them out there in the freezing cold water. I could never do that at 8 o'clock in the morning or whenever. It's just like, no, that's definitely not for me. You'd never catch me out doing that. And now I'm by the sea every single day. I don't go in every single day, but I do go in. And yes, it is fucking freezing. but the aliveness that you feel after a cold sea dip or swim is just like nothing compares.
So tell us, like, what does a typical like day look like for you? Because I feel like you're always doing different stuff.
I'm not. A typical day for me has to involve a lot of rest. I like to preserve my energy. I like to rest a lot. And I think this has a lot to do with, we mentioned earlier about being a manifestor in human design. It's like, I have these urges. When I get the urges, I create, I do things. And then when I don't, I just follow what my body's telling me to do. And a lot of the time it's to rest, to preserve my energy. And that's something that I've kind of mastered as well, being here, because there's been a lot of stuff coming up for this last year. It took quite a lot. It was very challenging to actually get here. And then once I was here, it was like, okay, there's so much now that I have to, or I get to kind of move through as well. There was a lot of, and I'm still moving through it, ancestral healing. My dad died last year, just sexual trauma. So many different layers kept coming up, and stuff that I hadn't really thought about and I wasn't really aware of. So I'm kind of deviating off the question that you asked me.
No, that's okay. We can go anywhere we want to.
So what do I do? So, okay, now everybody knows everything about my life. Well, no, not really, but my typical day, right. In the morning, I was never one for morning routines. But this is something that I started the turn of this year, is to have a non-negotiable morning routine whereby I wake up in the morning, I kind of ground myself in my body, call back all my energy after being in sleep in the dream world. My feet touch the ground and I spend probably about half an hour just being with myself. And in that half an hour, it could be that I do some yoga, I could do some chanting, I might meditate, I might do a bit of breath work. I might feel really creative and write something. It doesn't look any particular way. It's just, how am I feeling in that moment in the morning? What is it that my body needs when I get up? And I have a daughter and it's just the two of us. So I then obviously tend to her, take her to school and everything else.
Help her do whatever she needs. Because she's like, what, she's 9, 10, something like that?
She's 10 now.
10.
She's 10, yeah. And I think
so she's becoming more independent, I'm sure.
She has become so independent since we got here, and it's so beautiful to watch, because she's so mothering, and it's nice to see her becoming her own little woman. But that
Are you
comes with its
guys like
challenges.
making neighborhood friends and stuff?
She has dozens of friends. Yes.
Good.
Oh my good God. Yeah, which is amazing. It's incredible. It's really beautiful. So yeah, after she's tended to, dropped off to school, I then feel like at that point I need to rest. So I go and ground my energy, come home, lay down, sleep if I feel I need to, meditate if I feel I need to, and then do some work, rest, do something else, rest. And it's almost like just this burst of energy or this urge, and then I have to rest. And it's literally a little bit like a roller coaster, but not with the dramatic highs and the lows. But it's taken me a while to get used to that and to embody that flow as well.
Do you feel like it's more natural just to keep going?
I think I used to, until I came here. It became more apparent when as I became more kind of connected with my body. It was like I get to honor her in a way that I'd never honored her before, and listen to her the way that I'd never listened to her before. And what I noticed, and it's almost like a little bit of trial and error, what I noticed when I was trying to keep going and do all the things and do things like, the same as other people, that's when I would physically burn out. literally burnout. And I experienced that last year when I was trying to do something that with other people around me in the business, and I was like, oh well, I have to do it their way, I have to show up now, I have to do this, I have to do that. And about 2-3 weeks I was like, fuck that, man. I was in bed for about a week and I couldn't move because it was complete burnout. But it was a lesson, and it was an opportunity to learn that actually I don't have to do everything everybody else's way. I get to do things my fucking way, and I get to honor myself where I'm at in every single moment.
And I think oftentimes that's like what is more successful is, the way that works for you, because people can see that, whether they know they're seeing that or not. They can see, oh, this is enjoyable for you. This is your creativity and your ideas, rather than like, having to do a certain timing or certain way, which is really easy to get into because the comparison shit.
Yeah, of course. And as somebody, I mean, I kind of worked part-time here and there in the last kind of 18 years, but I never actually had a full-time job. I never even thought that I would be working again. And there was a part of me that never really believed that I'd have my own business. And when I did think about having my own business, I thought I was going to be a counselor, so a therapist, because I was studying to become a therapist. And then within the last 2 years, I completely changed my mind, dropped out of college to pursue a career in energy healing and coaching, and became an entrepreneur without even realizing what I was getting myself into. And that was the biggest learning curve ever. When you come into entrepreneurship, it's like, if you have not dealt with your shit, you are going to be faced with your shit. So you're going to have to deal with it whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I think it's like you can't, it's not like you can't, but it's if you're coming from a soul place, a place that you're coming from your heart, it's really hard to be successful without like examining the ways that you're holding yourself back, which become very obvious.
And when you do start out in entrepreneurship, it's like, and you've never had that experience before, you do look to others, who are leading by example. Oh, so this person's doing it this way, so therefore I must do it this way. And this person's doing it that way, so therefore I must do it that way. And you can go into that comparisonitis, that imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I'm a fraud because of XYZ. I don't know enough. All of those, all of these tendencies come up. All of these limiting beliefs come up. And that's why I'm saying, if you're not face your shit, you're going to start to face your shit. You're going to have to face it when you start a business. And that was the thing, is that that's what I was doing a lot of the time. It's like, well, I have to do it that way. It has to be a certain way. Otherwise, I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to have clients. I'm not going to, I like looking at really pretty aesthetics on Instagram, or I love the way that they share things in their posts, and, oh, I've got to do it that way because they're really successful, they're earning shit tons of money, they've got loads of clients, and they're being of service. So therefore I have to do it the same thing. I have to do exactly the same thing if I want the same results. And it's utter bullshit. It really is. We get to carve our own paths and do things our way, because if we don't, that's when we come up with those physical illness, the symptoms, all of those things. We're literally, and this brings us back to being in the body, trusting our own inner wisdom, not looking outside of ourselves for guidance constantly, knowing that and trusting that you are always being divinely guided, and having faith in that.
Yeah, I think sometimes even for me, like, it's the idea of like, okay, I'm going to put this offering out there, and not even that, oh, this offering isn't good enough, but like, is this the right time? Are people going to sign up? Like, should I do it on a different day because maybe that'll work for different people? Like, thinking about the audience and or the clients before myself being like, okay, this is what works for me. This is this type of thing I like to do. I want it to be this way. And knowing that like I don't have to compromise. And I think for me too, like I came from doing beauty stuff like facials, waxing. It's very much bend over fucking backwards for the client. If you don't, you're going to lose them and you're going to make a bad like impression of yourself, rather than this is my availability, this is what I do, which is a lot easier to do in this realm of like it's my business. But it's really easy to take those like old ideas that aren't even mine and put them into this business when that isn't what makes me happy.
Mm, mm. And it's also around it's not necessarily to do with, you know, employment and where you last worked either. It could also be related to childhood and people pleasing tendencies to kind of really, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but you're absolutely right. Is that the customer is always right, and the customer, you know, the customer comes first, and they have to get everything that they want. When in actual fact, yes, it is your business, and when you maintain that authority in your business, people will come to you. You're almost like you create that solid structure and foundation that creates safety. So if you're kind of quite amicable or accommodating, it's almost like you're kind of that foundation is kind of shaky. It's not kind of giving off that aura of safety. It's like, oh, anything could shift or change at any time. So if one client was like, actually, can you change the time? You'd be like, okay, I can do that. And then you've got everybody else going, oh, well, actually, I can't make that time. So, oh, hang on a minute, let me open up a different slot for you. And it's like, you're just, you're putting your energy in so many different directions, and it can feel quite unsafe. But having said that, I'm quite an inconsistent person as well. So if
I don't think
when
that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, I say inconsistent, but for me, it's a very positive thing. I say inconsistent because that's how people kind of could perceive the way that I work. If I have an appointment with a client and my body is feeling like, actually, right now, I can't show up for this person in the best way possible, then I will cancel a session without a blink of an eye or a thought of, this is going to trigger them or whatever it is. If it triggers them, then it's going to bring something up for them that we can work on together.
Well, maybe
Parts of
that's
their
what they
shadow.
needed anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
I think you work
also,
inspired, like it's an inspired work of like, this is the way it's going to be now, but maybe it's going to be different later.
yeah. But this, I mean, for a lot of people who have not had the consistency in their childhood, that have been through a lot of trauma, they need structure. They need that foundation. And it can feel really, really unsafe and unsettling, which I completely resonate with and understand and empathize. But it's also, again, it's an opportunity to become consciously aware of things that may be in their shadow that they didn't have any awareness of, an opportunity for healing. It's not something that I do on purpose. It's not like I'm right today. It's almost like I'm gonna literally sweep the carpet from underneath your feet so you get triggered as fuck, and we can work on this part of your shadow. It's not. It's not like that. It's me honoring, setting my boundaries, and saying if I'm not feeling up to it, and I don't feel that I'm gonna give you like being in my energy right now is gonna do you disservice. It's going to be a disservice to you and myself. And I'm going to come away from the session feeling burnt out. You're going to come away feeling probably a little bit depleted because I've not been able to put my whole self into the environment. I'm honoring both of us. I'm also honoring my boundaries and where I'm at in the moment.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. I feel like for me as a kid, it was that like inconsistency. And so to put myself into a structure is always difficult. And then I'll be like hard on myself because I can't do the structure right. But it's like that fine line of like the structure is helping you and the structure is hurting you. So it's hard sometimes to know the difference. But I think like what you're saying as far as like your morning routine, I think something like that can be helpful of like, I just know it's going to be 20-30 minutes of me and me, and it doesn't have to be like I do these 10 exercises every day. It's like the options are open, and that can feel, for me that feels comfortable because I'm like, I don't like to be the same all the time.
Exactly. And it's about checking in with your body as well. Like one day she might want to do like a HIIT fucking workout. The next day she might want to do a yoga workout. The next day she might want to stay in bed for an hour. You know, she might want to go for a walk. She might want to read a book. She might want to just sit in the garden. She might want to, that's the paint, you love art. It could be anything, but it's constantly checking in, what is it I need today? What is it you would like from me today? What can I do to support you this morning so that you are feeling nurtured, supported, and cared for throughout the rest of the day? Because that's what it is, really, ultimately, is that, having a morning routine, as I said, this isn't something that I've always had, but it's something that I've really started to master and learn that actually, for me personally, again, it's not for everybody. And just because I'm doing it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it or anyone else has to fucking do it. You have to do what's right for you. But for me, it kind of gives me that foundation again. So it doesn't get to, and then honoring the flow, the ebb and flow of my energy throughout the day and not feeling the pressure to show up if I don't feel like showing up. Show my face if I don't feel like showing my face. Having a call with a client if I don't feel like having a call with a client because maybe I've had a fucking argument with my daughter or something's happened, or do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to have an argument with my daughter and then 10 minutes later jump on a call with a client. That's not the
Yeah.
energy I want to bring in.
Well, and then we have to like be, to be a healer, or, you have to be in the right space for that. Like you could bring the energy forward, but like you're saying, it might be depleting or it might not be the right time. And it's really easy, anything that's a business, to look at what is bringing me money, like that as being the main reason to do something, when you're coming from this more spiritual perspective, helping people spiritually, sometimes there's other things that are going to be more important in the moment,
Mm, mm.
which is hard because obviously it's a business, you want to make money, like, but there's many other things at play. It's not like you're just selling, frozen yogurt or whatever.
Mm, mm. And I just want to kind of reflect back to you there, Grace, that so often in the moments where we do honor ourselves and where we're at in the moment, that's exactly the time that we do call in the clients, is that when we're looking after ourselves, because the more that we prioritize ourselves, um, the more we're basically putting out the message to the universe and saying, look, my well-being comes first. And I trust, if I want to spend 5 days in bed to rest, I trust that I'm still going to be provided for financially. And it doesn't necessarily have to come through the business. I'm open to receiving money from all different directions.
Yeah, and that's like the really powerful thing to tap into, because it doesn't have to only come in through the work you're putting out externally. Like I do session, you give me money. It can be much more than that. And the more that we can, take care of ourselves, display that energy outward, I think more opportunities present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that, like, if I'm working extra hard on myself, I'm usually doing more client work too.
Mm, mm,
I don't like to think of it as hard work, but
mm.
That's
I'm
another
glad
thing.
you picked up on that. I'm glad. I was just contemplating, shall I reflect that back to you, the words that you just used, when I'm working hard on myself.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
But you
Yeah.
already picked up on it, so I have to say nothing.
No, it's great. Um, yeah, it's, and I think the words we use are really, their energy, their
Yes.
magic, whatever you want to think of it as.
Mm.
So if I'm like, this is so hard, then it's going to stay that way, which is a really easy place for me to be in. Like, this is hard, this is painful, and not, this is expansive, this is helping me. Like, even if it feels difficult.
Mm. And that's one of the things that I love to tap into, is that when any of my clients are going through a struggle, I try to offer them a different perspective and how can you choose to see it in a different way and maybe a more positive light. It's not necessarily invalidating their experience or their feelings. I think it's very much, it's very important to validate the feelings, honor the experience, but at the same time, you have a choice as to how long you want to stay in that suffering, how long you want to stay there, and how could I possibly view this experience in a different way? Because sometimes when we get caught up in ourselves, in the in the noise in our heads, the voices in our heads, when we're trying to figure shit out, when everything feels a little bit noisy and chaotic and everything else, it's just we need to, that's when we can kind of, we need a different way or a different perspective to almost like snap us out of it. Not always, but often. And also a lot of the time is that that's actually when we need to drop into our bodies as well, to quieten the mind.
It's, yeah, it's so easy to just spin in circles.
It is. It is. It really is. And if we're so used to being there, it's a safe place to be, it's a comfortable place to be, we will stay there. We will torment ourselves. We will sabotage ourselves because that's familiar.
Yeah.
And to have it
Yeah.
any other way is just like, I don't know any other way. So again, we're kind of circling back to what I said before, having that guide, having that healer, having that coach, having that mentor to be the reflection, to offer you a different perspective as well. And to actually be that agent of positive shock.
Well, I think it's really powerful because, like, I'm sure, like myself, many people have, family stuff or stuff that happened with their siblings or even in school that is like feeling shut down, instead of having someone like give you that, the positive shock of, like, they tell you what you need to hear and might not feel good in the moment, but it's helpful in the long run. And I think a lot of people have that experience with their family and it feels super triggering. So to have that from someone that they can feel safe and comfortable with, like a healer, coach, therapist, whatever, is, I think, really important, because you might not hear it if you're hearing it from that same person, like your mom or your dad or
Mm.
your grandma. If
And
my mom tells me shit, I'm like, I'm not listening to that.
yeah, well, there's so much, we're so enmeshed in our families, and there is often a lot of different dynamics and attachments in the family dynamic. And with friends as well. And often when we go to family or friends for advice, they are seeing things through their own lens.
Yeah.
Whereas when you pay for a service, when you invest in yourself with a healer or a coach or whatever, it's coming from a place of neutrality. They don't give a shit about what's going, well, they do give a shit about what's going on in your life, but they're
But
not
they're
here
not
to tell,
judging
well,
you.
yeah, exactly. And I'm going to speak for myself. I'm not here to tell you necessarily what it is that you need to do, but I will say, have you thought about this? Perhaps this is something that you could do, rather than I think you should, which is a lot of what family and friends will say. Well, I wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? And that's the kind of phrases that they would say. Or it's almost like an open conversation rather than you should be doing it this way, that way, or the other way. This is my opinion, and kind of projecting their opinions, their thoughts, their views, their beliefs onto you. it's really difficult to navigate difficult situations. If you're looking for advice, if you're looking for sound advice from somebody who's going to be completely neutral, that's absolutely fine. But I think so often when we're looking for advice from family or friends, it's because there's some sort of dynamic going on, perhaps even trauma bond, codependent relationship, the different attachment styles as well. So when you come into like the coaching environment or the healing, like with an energy healer, it's almost like the coach, I'm going to speak for myself, the coach and you as a client, there needs to be a secure attachment. So you need to feel safe. You need to feel like you can speak to them about anything. I feel like I'm completely going off on a tangent here.
No, this is great.
Like we're going around like all over the place.
No, this is what we need to talk about. And I think that's what is helpful about what you do is you're open about yourself, your story. You talk about your personal shit that you're working on. And that I think is not only beautiful to see, okay, like this is where you were, this is where you are, like, that is helpful and hopeful for people, but it also provides that safety, like you're saying, like if you can see yourself reflected in the person you're working with, that makes you a lot more comfortable than, booking someone just because they have, 3 million followers or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at what they do or they're good for you.
Exactly. And I think connection is so important. It's so important. And yeah, I am a work in progress, as we all are. And I am an open book in most areas of my life. And I just feel like it's really, really important for me to be an open book, but it's also something that I love to be. I don't think, oh shit, I need to be an open book so everybody will be able to, certain people will be able to connect
this is
with
just
me.
you.
This is just me.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
No, I think, and I think that inspires me because like you said, I think it's how you have to be. Like for me, I had so much, pain around not being heard, not being listened to. That's why I'm even doing the podcast, is to heal that part of me that like, okay, when I talk, people are going to listen. And so it's like, some of the stuff we do is for our own healing. And then that can help support others. Like the more that you see and explore those parts of yourself.
I'm curious. Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Okay. So I'm curious to learn what happens. Okay. So you just shared that, in some ways, recording and doing a podcast and everything is really helping and healing for you in terms of being heard and everything else. I'm curious whether anything comes up for you when you see the amount of people that have listened to the podcast. Does it make you feel any type of way if there's perhaps less listeners one day or no listeners for a couple of weeks, or I don't know. I'm just curious as to whether that may bring anything up for you when you look at the statistics.
I think so. Like, I think when I first, so I've been doing it almost a year and a half now. I think when I first started, it was almost intimidating in the opposite way. Like, oh my God, people are actually listening to this. Like, fuck. Okay. And it's not like I have a bajillion downloads, but we're working on it. But I think sometimes I'll see certain episodes are less than others. And that sometimes makes me, I'm like, oh, was that like not as good or like, I can bring that up in my mind of like, was that not as interesting? And that brings back, stuff, I think, just from my childhood, especially. So that is definitely something to think about and reflect. Because I think it's interesting because I think certain times just more people are listening. Obviously the guest episodes, sometimes people their audience will listen, so that, reflects in the numbers. But sometimes it's like certain subjects I'm like, oh, is this not interesting to them? So that's definitely, I think, learning and healing for me to say, okay, like maybe this one got this many and the other one got way more. It doesn't mean that it necessarily was bad, but it also can show me like what subjects are interesting to people.
Yeah, so there's so much to what you've just said. Yes, it can kind of highlight what people are kind of interested in, what fascinates people, but also to go to a place of, oh, was there something wrong with this particular episode? Do people not like it? And for that to actually bring something up, it's almost like that wound of rejection,
Yes.
of not being
I have
seen,
a lot of
heard,
that. Yeah.
understood. And so, and this can happen a lot. I mean, I went through exactly the same thing, not with the podcast, because I didn't want to be, I intentionally didn't want to become attached to the statistics
The
because I
numbers.
knew that that trait would be there if I went there. And it's like, it's not that I was avoiding it. It was just, actually, I'm doing this because this is what I want to do for me. And if it helps at least one person, then that's absolutely, if one person a fucking week listens to my show, which is no longer, by the way, that, that for me was enough. That for me was enough. And then anything more than that was like a bonus. It was like, oh my God, I got 2 listeners. Do you know what I mean? And just how much gratitude you can have if you come at things from that perspective and almost like detach from, if people don't listen to this, it's because I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy, or, bringing up all of those rejection wounds or whatever it is. It's just like, actually, I'm going to show up because this is something I really fucking love to do. I'm doing this for me. And I know that if I do this for me and this inspires at least one person to listen and to listen, repeatedly, and they come back every week, or even if they just come once and hear what they needed to know, for me, that's enough.
Especially for me with the guest episodes, like mainly it's exciting to me because I get to have conversations with people I think are cool. And in the long run, maybe I'll get to have conversations with people I've never even met. Like that is exciting to me. And then the solo episodes, I feel like it's very exciting for me because I get to explore different topics, share things that maybe people haven't heard, I haven't talked about before. So I feel like it's healing for me to record it, but there is like still some element of like wanting to be seen, but also wanting to hide. So it's like, that's what I'm wanting to work on this year too. My whole theme, I pick a word to connect with over the year. And my theme this year is visibility, just like, opening up my intuitive visibility, my clairvoyance. I've been working on that, but also like with my work, just being comfortable being seen or talked about or known or whatever, which can be hard.
It can be very hard. It can be hard. And when you think that you're ready to become even more visible, the more visible you become, the more kind of expansive, the more you expand, the more challenges are going to arise. That's what I've noticed for myself as well. But I love that for you, that visibility. My word for the year was actually gentleness.
Oh, I love that.
To offer myself more gentleness, because I have been, some of the shit I've been through over the years, everything's always felt so fucking intense. And it's almost like I got on this roller coaster of rock bottom, coming out the other side. Let's go again. Let's have a really good time. Let's hit fucking rock bottom. And it just like this really kind of up and down, no stopping, keep going, really intense, dramatic, chaotic, all of the things. And so this year it was like, fuck that shit. I've had enough now. Thank you for the lessons and everything else. I'm grateful, but I don't want to have to do that anymore. I don't get to do that anymore because I'm choosing not to. This year is going to be all about flow and gentleness. And let's try that on for size and see where that goes.
Yes, I love to hear that. And that's helpful for me because it's so easy to be go, 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 go constantly. That's why I even like doing one of the reasons I even like doing the healing work for others is like, that's a time where I can be quiet. Like I can tune into them, I can feel them, but I'm not talking, which is like most of the time I'm constantly talking. So
That's
to
not a
be
bad
like,
thing. But also, you know, when we tune into others, when we help others, we're also healing ourselves. You know, we
yes,
can transmute a lot of our stuff through the work that we do. It can be really cathartic for us as healers also, even though we're not necessarily, you know, we're not bringing our shit into the arena. We're kind of very discerning around our energy and all of those things. But actually, you know, the clients that come to us often are, you know, they're revealing aspects of ourselves that maybe still need a little bit of healing. Or maybe, I think I mentioned this earlier, we're kind of a couple of steps ahead of them and we know that we can help them in a certain way. You know, it's everyone's a mirror. Everyone's a mirror. There's an opportunity for healing in every single fucking encounter of your life if you choose to see it from that perspective.
yes,
And it's not
yeah,
about bypassing. This is coming from a really grounded and anchored space. This is coming from a place of, you know, we get a choice in every single situation. And if you haven't done the work and you're really reactive and you get triggered really fucking easily and you get angry and go off on one or whatever, you get stuck in those a cycle of trauma responses, then there's work to be fucking done, because you can actually come to a place of neutrality and go, I choose not to engage in this. Actually, this trigger is, yeah, this is highly, like, you know, this is teaching me something here that I maybe haven't dealt with. You know, I choose not to go through this situation again. I'm just gonna like, okay, enough already. You know, because we have fucking free will, we have free choice, and we get to say no. We get to say enough is enough. We get to participate when we want to and not when we don't.
and that's so hard for people to learn if they, are coming from like those codependent type of behaviors. It's like to know it literally is okay to say no.
And it's okay. Sometimes it's a difficult lesson to learn, but the best way to learn is literally by trying it, seeing how it makes you feel. And there will be a lot of visceral response. Your nervous system will probably react in some certain way, because codependency, people pleasing is all like related to the fawn trauma response, which is something, you know, I could go on for days about this. I just feel, or I just want to share that it's super important for people to realize that they have a choice, and to almost, how do I want to say this? Honor the pause moments, because I find that we don't honor the pause moments enough. And when I say the pause moments are the moments before, the moment in between the event that's happened and what happens next. You get to pause. And it's in that moment that can create magic.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's so easy to like not examine that in between, just to keep pushing stuff away so that you can be human and do your little tasks. But if we want to keep living, keep going, like you have to look at those things, or else they'll show up later. And for me it was pain, but for other people it might be emotional stuff, or catalytic events in their life or whatever.
Yeah, something generally happens to make you pay attention,
Listen.
yeah. It's almost as if you're forced to listen and pay attention. I'm
So
just kind
oh,
of,
sorry.
no, it's fine. I'm just sitting here and pausing actually for a moment, because I feel like I haven't stopped talking since we started recording. And I'm going to be completely honest. I don't remember a fucking word that we've spoken about.
That's okay. That's sometimes it's like, I see it as sometimes spirit can speak through us.
Yes.
So, those are the things that we needed to say today. And you can always listen back if you want to hear what you had to say.
Of course. That's the thing though, Grace. I'm going to be honest. I knew, like, before we got on this recording today, I set the intention for anything to come through me that needed to be spoken about today. And it's in those moments, that's when I won't remember. But it's almost, you see what I'm saying about this dissociation?
Yeah.
This is why when we forget the words that we've spoken, or we're just, because this is what happens, I'm just allowing, almost not dissociating from my body, but just allowing for spirit to speak through me, and almost like putting my human to one side, not having my thinking brain involved. And it is a little bit of a form of dissociation, but at the same time, because it's coming from a really grounded and safe space, it's not a trauma response. It's just me being open and channeling the information that's coming through. And even though, it may be a little bit kind of flowy and darting around from subject to subject, I know and trust that everything that we've spoken about today is exactly what's supposed to be spoken about. And so often, this is what I mean about, doing things your way. I would love to listen back to this episode, but generally when I do things, I don't tend to listen back to stuff because I just trust.
Well, sometimes it's like, it's not necessarily for you. It's for you, through you, like, and you might heal by speaking those words and saying those things out loud, but to listen back, it doesn't always necessarily, you don't really always need that. It's like you already kind of experienced it.
But this
even
is,
if you're not conscious of it.
Yeah, this is the trust piece as well. Because I could walk away and go and sabotage and go, oh, fucking hell, what the fuck did I just say? I can't remember anything that I've just said. Or I could just go, actually, whatever was said, I know it was meant to be said.
It's perfect just the way it is.
And I don't need, exactly, and I don't need validation. I don't need clarity. I don't need to fucking listen back to it or do any of those things, because I just inherently know in my body, in my heart, in my soul, that everything we've spoken about today was exactly as it is and as it should be.
Yeah, and I see it as when we're dissociating or like leaving our body, we're like going out, we're going up. And when we're channeling, it's like that energy is coming in.
Coming down.
So I think we're still in, at least in my experience and what I see for you, I don't think all channels are like that. I think sometimes they're up, but it's like, it's you, and then they also come in. So it's like this part of your brain is Sinead, or this part of your brain is Sinead, and this part is the spirit.
Yeah.
For some reason, I see it on the left side for you.
It is. That's interesting.
Yeah, and then I think sometimes, the guides and stuff, they can come in, they can talk through you too. But I feel like usually that is a different feeling, which I'm sure you've experienced.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to share with us? Like anything you have coming up for people to check out? I know I saw you're doing a event. I don't know if that's going to be already passed by the time this airs though.
Yeah, the event is actually on the 7th of April. So I think it shall have passed, but I'm sure the replay will be available when this episode gets released. There are some exciting things coming up in the future. I'm going to be relaunching the Miracle Method, which is a group program, which is a 6-month group program now to support that basically takes a holistic approach to support women to overcome and heal from sexual trauma. So there's that, and there's also a brand new offering that I am yet to release or speak about. It's kind of in the works. And it's also a 6-month program. And this is literally going to be spirituality through a trauma-informed lens. So learning how to navigate traumas, almost like doing all the shadow work, having all the tools that you need for whenever you go through the dark night of the soul or an ego death or anything else, teaching you all of those things, and then teaching you how to open up spiritually from a really grounded and safe space.
Amazing.
So almost like mastering the human, because I think in a lot of psychic development programs, they miss that piece.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what we really need. Like, I think it's so easy for people who have been traumatized or any kind of pain to go into spirituality or psychic work, and it becomes, I don't want to say dangerous because that sounds a little harsh, but it can be jarring, not a very safe thing to do if you're not fully present. And so I think we really have to work on getting people comfortable. So I feel like that will be very valuable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit that's a little unethical. So to
there's a
have,
whole lot of shit that's really unethical, actually.
yeah,
Very much so. And that's why I wanted to create something that kind of combines the two in terms of, I think personally, in my opinion, if you're going to be working with people, regardless if you're a healer or a shop assistant, whatever it is, it depends how up close and personal you get with people when you are a shop assistant. But people are always, if you are a shop assistant, I'm going off on one now, people are going to be telling you shit, like telling you their life stories. I think there should be some form of training around being trauma informed,
yeah,
and energetic boundaries and all of those things. And I think, and this is the piece that I've never seen. I mean, I've seen people kind of offering, let's go into shadow work, let's go into inner child healing, all of those things, and then open up your psychic abilities. But this program is literally going to teach you how to regulate your nervous system, how to navigate your triggers, how to uphold and maintain boundaries, like in a really like established safety in the body, all of those things first before we even look at what a fucking chakra is.
I think that's really important. And I think people go too fast, or like we were talking about earlier, people are already open in their crown, their third eye, like,
yeah, massively.
So but all the other shit is all crunched up.
It's not sustainable.
No.
You can't stay up there if you haven't worked on being down here, mastering your human, as I kind of mentioned a couple of times, and mastering those lower 3 chakras. So it's all intrinsically connected, and this is what I kind of want to bring out into the world, is something, a psychic, almost like a psychic development or a spiritual development group program through a trauma-informed lens. So giving you all the tools, again, that you can come back to time and time and time and time and time and time again, before you even go into that spirituality, opening up your gifts and everything else. 6-month program. It's not launching yet. It's probably going to launch in June, but this is the first time I've actually spoken about it in public outside of the relationship I have with my coach and my mentor.
We're putting it out in the universe.
We're putting it out in the universe, and I'm calling in so many people. So if you're curious to learn more, feel free to reach out to me. There's nothing set up. There's no sales page. There's no fucking anything set up right now, but I know how the program's going to go. I know all the subjects. I have all the content. It's just a case that I know the price point. I have everything there. I just have no sales page right now.
Yeah, just the logistical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll put your information in the show notes and people can find you. And y'all should definitely follow Sinead on Instagram. I love watching your stories.
Oh, thank you so
Well, you
much.
always talk, like you'll talk and share information, but it's just cool also just to see like what you're doing. And I like to see the horses and all the stuff you were doing for a while.
Yes. Yeah, I started horse riding lessons, didn't I? I haven't done that since. But for me, I could talk to you for hours. But for me, like I used to be scared of horses, like from the age of, I was kicked by a wild horse when I was 5. And I was absolutely petrified of horses ever since. And then I got to my 30th birthday and I made the decision. There was like this big, I'd gone for dinner. There was this big horse and cart outside the restaurant. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't want to be afraid of horses anymore. So I went outside, I pet the horse, and that was it. The fear was done and dusted. But the next thing was is that I hadn't actually got on a horse since I was 12. And when I was 12, it petrified me, and I was crying, hysterical, panic attacks, you name it, it was all going off. So my daughter is so into horses and I love watching her, and they're such majestic creatures. I was like, do you know what? One day when we have a horse, we're going to have 2 horses, because I'm not going to let her go out riding on her own. I want to fucking get involved. We're going to go galloping off into the wilderness. So I want to learn to ride. So I combated another fear. And
Amazing.
I think a lot of it was related to past life as well. Because I felt like when I got back on the horse this time, get back on the horse, that's very cliche. It was almost as if I've done this before. And I felt powerful.
Do you feel like you've had past lives in Ireland?
Yes. I have a lot of ancestors here.
I do too. I want to go. I want to visit. I
You're more
want
than welcome.
my ancestors are in
Irish.
County Cork. I don't know like what side that is of Ireland.
That is down from me, a couple of counties down from me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know there's some people that are still living there, but I don't have their names, but I'm curious.
It'll come to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I love to listen to you talk and share some stuff with us.
Some nuggets.
Yeah, little nuggets.
You're
Awesome.
so welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll put all Sinead's info in the show notes. Y'all can check her out. And you do private coaching too, right? So
Yes,
if people want to work one-on-one.
Yes, I do. I do. I have I work with people for 6 weeks. Almost like this. It's called the quantum shift. So if you know anything about me by now from listening to this podcast, you'll probably know that well, you may or may not know. I'm not going to make any assumptions that, the work that I do can be quite quick. You may experience quite a rapid transformation. So if it's something that's been with you for a while, that you're ready to shift and kind of transmute and leave behind and kind of unleash this new you, the quantum shift is perfect. It's a 6-week container where we would have 3 face-to-face sessions, and it could be coaching, it could be energy healing, it could be a combination of both. And then you'll have support like vocal coaching as well over Voxer for 30 days. So there's that. And then I do a 6-month one-to-one mentorship, 6-month or 12-month. And that is quite similar, but yeah.
Just a longer period.
Yes.
With that, do you meet with people like once a month?
With the 6-month mentorship, it's every other week. And again,
okay, damn, you're going deep.
Yeah, I was working with people every single week, but what I started to notice is that there was no time for integration, no time for that pause. And I think that we can have this tendency to get on the hamster wheel of healing and just keep going and keep going and keep going. And that really perpetuates that hustle culture. So I decided to almost like, let's do it. And the other thing was, is that as well, is that when my clients signing up for me for 3 months, they were extending their contracts. Like the majority of my clients will extend their contracts with me. And I wanted to create something that wasn't going to have them feeling, okay, now I've got to do it again next week. Now I've got to, and just keep going and keep going and keep going. So I've created more space in this 6-month container. And then you still have that consistency and that support through Voxer. And, you know, face-to-face coaching and healing is just as powerful. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Having that Voxer voice support is just as powerful as face-to-face coaching or healing. My voice and the energy that I channel through my voice is very, you know, it can make quite an impact as well. And sometimes it isn't the case of, I need to see you face to face to discuss something. Sometimes it's like, I need to get this off my chest to process something, and I need your input, or I need your input, but I would like your input, or whatever it is. So it's almost like it's combining the two elements of face to face and the vocal.
Amazing. Yeah. So if y'all are interested in connecting with Sinead, you can reach out to her. Yeah, your voice is so soothing, but it's also like the energy, like you're saying. So just to listen to this episode, I'm sure some thoughts and things will come up for people. So if you have questions, you can always reach out to Sinead or myself. And that's about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love talking with you today. And we will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.